telexes and faxes in those days. There was no electronic, network, internet didn't exist. So you would make sure you try and send a fax. Okay, half the time the fax wouldn't work, right? So you would have to carry it with you and take it to the next town in the morning. Early morning lines are easier to get than the evening lines because of peak hours and lightning calls that were being made in those days and all that, So those wouldn't work. We did that, and then at night you took you took a bus, so that midnight you reached the next town. Next to the bus stop, which is at the entrance of the town, there was a little lodge. So you would go up there, you would sleep there at night and have a bath in cold water the next morning, and then you are at the distributor's shop first thing in the morning to do that fax. Okay, that's how everybody was treated. That's how I was treated, which I think was great learning. It was amazing learning, because even today, if you have to solve a problem, you have to jump into it and go down to the market and solve it.
Absolutely. I think there are some youngsters here who are MBA students, as well as there are set of startups. I think so. Basically, your key takeaway is that get into the process, jump into the battle.
Absolutely.
Learn to swim. That's the only way to get into business.
I think if you didn't do what was needed on the ground, you will not understand the challenges that are there on the ground, including even if you want to change the rules of the game, you want to change your business model. Okay, let's say you want to do something completely different, and we've done that. I've actually learned from that, and my business salespeople don't travel by buses, for example. Okay, because our model is different. Right? My people travel by planes, right? So they have to, but to make those rules, make the changes happen, to understand those finer differences and nuances in the need of what works for which business, I think is something you need to do by jumping into the water. You can't swim until you jump into the water. So I think that experience has been, to me, it's been phenomenal, right? And that kind of training that if I can give to my next generation, I think that will be a very, very useful thing to do. That will be a very good way to train up people. Okay.
Brilliant. Any questions on Jainis?
I have one.
Sorry.
What's the fate of the person who is running the Lamborghini business?
So that's a good question. It's actually a division of the bigger business. So what happens sometimes, you don't notice that you can afford to take a little risk. Okay, fortunately, right? I don't think one would have gone and set up the business from scratch just to do a Lamborghini dealership independently, because it's not affordable. It just doesn't work. You can do it as a division of one of the bigger companies. So it's a part of the same auto hanger business. So there is a 1,000 crore business otherwise, and this is a small 15-20 crore business which runs as a part of the division. But the fact that it's a product line as how you treat it, and that's why it works. Today he has taken a decision that in 1.5 years of operating, he has looked at it and he says there is no scope. We are going to cut and trim and change the business. Okay, and we did that. In fact, we sat together and talked it through in terms of saying what is the business model that is going to work. So trim it to that business model. So one thing they've done, for example, they're going to continue it for another 1.5 years as a part of the deal, but they're going to have no showroom. Because a car like a Lamborghini doesn't require a showroom. You don't need to invest in a showroom. To have a showroom in Bombay costs, it's a lot of money. Right? A rental is 400 rupees a square foot if you have a decent showroom. To buy it, it will cost you 30-40 crores. To invest 40 crores in selling 5-6 cars in a year makes no sense. So you change the model completely. Right?
Yeah, Jainendra, you had.
Global average for family business getting into fourth generation is something like 14%, and when it compares to India, it is something 8 or 10%, much relatively much lesser. When it comes to Indian spices business, is probably much lesser. So being you are talking like that today, your fifth generation is getting as some of the also like maybe in a different form, done with AVT and part of a big family business.
Yeah.
Taken into the professional system. So my question is, the concept is like either you want to be king or you want to be rich.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to Indian business scenario, predominantly the people want to be king rather than rich.
Okay.
So how you interpret this king or rich statement when it comes to Indian scenario of industries, particularly family business?
So that's a That's an interesting piece of thought but it's a good question. I think it's important. If I interpret what you're asking and if I respond to it, my response would be as follows. What we do is, or at least I've done in my experience, has been that to me there is no glory in turnover. The glory, you are in the business to make money. Right? Your objective is to make a return on a capital employed. And you need to run your business on an ROC basis, because it's family money that's in there, or it's shareholders' money that's in there, and you need to owe your shareholders answers on return on capital employed. Now, how do you get capital employed which is above average? Right? The way you get capital employed which is above average is you got to actually own the profit streams that make that profit. To own the profit streams, you have to be a king in those areas. Okay. So you cannot not be the king, but yet your focus ought to be profit driven. Now, how do you achieve that? I think is really where the trick lies. Okay. So you can't, if you're not in the, if you look at businesses, if you're not in the top 2 or 3 businesses of your type, okay, you will not make the kind of money. Okay, you will be an also ran. You'll make money when you have the ability to dominate in certain spaces, right, where your core competence is the strongest, and you are able to dominate in terms of either you have competitive advantage in one of the or a few of the key areas which make the profits happen, right? Whether it's technology or whether it's supply chain or whether it's marketing or whether it's your ability to build relationships with customers, whatever it be, right? It depends on what your business is. You got to define where your competitive advantage is going to be, and that drives your ability to be number 1 or 2 or 3 in that space. And once you are number 1 or 2 or 3 in that space is when you have the ability to, you have pricing power. And if you have pricing power is when you start making better profits. Your pricing power is not necessarily just how much of a price you set, but it's also a matter of terms you are able to negotiate. Okay, how much money is invested versus how much money is. So you don't have to have the highest prices to make the most money. You've got to have the best terms in business. It's the cash that matters. How do you turn your cash around? How much money you make on every rupee you invest? That's really what business is all about. So if you focus on ROC and you focus on being number 1 or 2 or 3, address both issues. Does that answer the question correctly?
Okay, unless there are some questions on the family thing. Yeah, I think the youngsters.
Sure.
They're from DC College.
Yes.
Good.
From DC School of Management. I've got 2 questions for you.
Sure.
The first question is, do you think you were driven into this business because it's a family business? Do you think you were driven into this, or did you have any other alternative in your mind after you were done with your studies?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you ask my son that question, okay, he will tell you that perhaps my father has craftily driven me into the business. Okay.
Did your father do the same thing?
So I don't know whether my father did, but I think if I reflect on it, it just happened that way. We looked at it and I looked at, what am I going to do? I want to join the business and I want to have some fun doing business, And I think what happens is in a family, this is whether you are operational or not, you are in business in some ways, okay? And you start, business is being discussed you don't discuss business only in the office. Business gets discussed on the dining table, on the breakfast table, okay? Sitting in the living room, phone calls, right? Those happen any time of the day, any time of the night. So you are in a business environment virtually all around. If you look at friends of business people, they are also business people, largely, okay? Or lawyers, or advisors, or accountants, okay? Guys like Rajesh who come and sit on your head all the time and are giving you advice, okay? It's a natural part of the business, So you would take Rajesh home and sit down and have a drink one day. So my son is also listening to what he is talking to me about, right? The environment is that you start belonging to that environment subconsciously, right? And you get hypnotized through that process. So that's how you become part of the system, right? my dad, for example, told me when my son was joining the business, my son had an ambition to become, he's not here, I should have brought him, he should have talked to you about it, but he wanted to be a politician. He still wants to be a politician. Right? And I've told him it's a great idea.
Send him to Kerala, we need.
Yeah, absolutely. and I said to him, in fact, I actually told him that. I said, the only place where you will be accepted as a politician will be Kerala. I'll tell you why, because Malayalam is the only language he speaks. He doesn't speak Marathi, he doesn't speak Kutchi, he doesn't speak Gujarati. Okay, so he's not going to be able to make it in Maharashtra, he's not going to be able to make it in Gujarat. Okay, he's going to be able to make it only in Kerala because he speaks, reads and writes Malayalam. Right? He was born and brought up here. So I said, you need to talk the local language to make it into politics anywhere. You can't speak English and expect India to vote for you. It's not going to happen. You have 3 ways of becoming a politician. One is join the mainstream big party and become either a congressman or a leftist or a BJP man, okay, or join up, okay, and start fresh, something new. That's the second way of becoming, okay. But then you have to accept everything that goes with it, okay. And you know what I mean by everything that goes with it. You got to bend your principles, you got to bend your rules. You can't say, I'm going to be straight in a political environment. It doesn't work, you know. You can't join a mainstream party and say, I'm going to be straight. It doesn't work, right? For that, you have to join up, okay, or you create your own party. If you create your own party, it's going to take a nice long time before people start noticing who you are, and a few losses before you get there. There's a third way of becoming one, which is you can become Nandan Nilekani, okay, and the government will invite you in. So you choose what you want to be. You can go out, there's a whole wide world, okay, and decide what is the best way to approach it. Perhaps becoming Nandan Nilekani is a smarter way to get there, okay.
Maybe Nihar has taken that route, maybe?
I think he has.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. He has accepted that more or less to say, perhaps becoming Nandan Nilekani is the way to go, because joining up and joining Congress or joining BJP is not necessarily his way of making his presence felt, is what he recognized.
Does that answer your question?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I have a second question as well. by
Ah.
the way. The question is, I hear from a lot of students that they have second guesses about becoming or getting into marketing. So you said you started off as a salesman. So what do you think? What is the hardest part in marketing? When does it get better?
I think it has to do with your temperament basically, but it also depends on what you want at the end of your in your career and when you're in your personality type. Okay, people who are motivated by sales do need that customer connect. Okay, they need that ability to go out into the market all the time. So you got to then pick businesses like that, where they keep you in touch with your customer relationships all the time. Yeah. Some people are built with a mindset of numbers, okay, which is some people call them bean counters, right, accountants. Now it depends on what kind of mindset you bring to the table, is how you need to pick what is good for you. It's the story of a dolphin wanting to become a runner. It's not going to happen. A dolphin is going to be a great swimmer, not going to be a great runner. So when you are a dolphin, you should learn how to swim best. Okay, and if you are a cheetah, then you should run best rather than try to swim. Okay.
So make your choice, that's what it is.
Make your choice based on your core competencies and your strengths. What motivates you, what drives you from within, is what we should be your basic choices. So you pick the career or pick the business based on that, I think, is what one needs to do, really. Yeah. So I don't think you have to learn a lot of things if you want to grow and run a business of your own, but you don't necessarily have to do everything yourself. You can hire people to do things for you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. How easy is it for your fifth generation entrepreneur to get money for a startup from your family business?
I was wondering when then the question was going to come. Okay. So I will share my experience with you. For fifth generation, let's talk about what happened to me, So when I wanted to start OmniActives, okay, I didn't know it was going to be OmniActives. I just wanted to start a new business, which was something we had conceptualized in a certain way. And when we did that, we decided we now needed some money. For a while, I funded it from Cancor, okay, and I got it up to a certain point. But at that point, I realized 2-3 crores was spent on it, and I said, wow, so much money has now gone, it has to be made into something now. I can't hide 2-3 crores, okay, of money going into a business, and I to grow it, I'll need more, okay. So how am I going to get it? So that's when I went back to the family to sell the concept of this business plan. When I sold them the business plan, they said, ooh, this is too risky, okay. A whole new business which nobody knows of, okay. You have no idea how to sell, and you don't know which markets you have, how you are going to put it into the market, okay. It's a new market, completely new market for you, and it's a new market it's an evolutionary market. I don't know how much you know about nutraceuticals, but nutraceuticals is a 10, 15, 20-year-old market, okay. And I entered it about 10 years ago, right? So it was about 5 years new, okay. And very few companies in India were in that business, right? And so everybody in the family said, risky business. I don't know whether we want to put more money into it. You already stolen 3 crores and put it in. Now you have to somehow get it out. Okay. So what are you going to do about it? You please tell me what is your approach and answer. We are not putting money into this business until you get money from the outside. Okay. So I went and I spoke to a few VCs, and I made a pitch in front of a few VCs, and eventually I found one bakra, okay, who put money in my business. Okay. And then I went back to the family and said, I don't need your money. I've got enough from this guy. Okay. Which was the fun part, because I am now not able to buy my family back, but I'm able to buy him back. Okay. Which was a nice thing to happen to me, incidentally.
I think that's an
Just
interesting.
take it if you're.
So I would do, yeah. So one of the things we have always said is that if you have a good, bankable, well thought out business plan, okay, and we'll teach you how to do that. Right? So one of the parts of this, we do a 2-year training for everybody, not just family. Okay, even our fresh MBA kids who join our companies go through a 2-year training process, MT, management training process. Okay, or even our engineering trainees go through a 2-year engineering training process. So everybody goes through a similar type of process, and they get exposed to business ideas, get exposed to all functions in the company, and they get put in charge of projects to create business plans, conceptualize a whole business from scratch to finish. And one of the things is that we pride ourselves on as a company. In our cases, youngsters come up with the finest, interesting ideas, and they have the willingness and the ability to take risks. So we need to encourage that. At the same time, we need to guide them well, which is where good ideas come out of and new ideas come out of. So if we did that well as a group, we'll create entrepreneurs, okay, from within, and that has been our practice, which is what we've tried to do, right? We've grown with that formula. What it does is it encourages people to try out new. So after 2-3 years of working, you are given a business to create from scratch or from a very small base and convert it into something bigger. Okay. And that is a process we encourage. That's how we grow.
And the family funds that all you will fund.
And you fund it. Okay. So we have funded not just family, we also funded non-family people. Okay. In fact, one of them is sitting here with you. He's now grown to be our CEO of the company as a whole. He started off as a management trainee with us, Jimon, and 2 years after his training, he got a business to run in setup, and that also we sent a Malayali to Uttar Pradesh to set up a business. Okay. And he created a business which is today almost 100 crores in size, or more than 100 crores in size.
That's your main business, isn't it?
That's the main business. Close to 200 crores. Yeah. And we funded it, right? And there is not a single family member that was involved in that business, right? So we do that with the kids, and we do that with this. And actually, one of the things that is necessary is, and it works as a formula, is when at that young age, if in a well-established, process-driven company, what happens is you learn functions. You learn how to be a good manager. Okay? You don't learn how to become an entrepreneur. So you have to create the conditions in which youngsters learn how to become entrepreneurs. by giving them that freedom to take risk and set up a new business from scratch. Because when you have to set up a new business, you are alone and you have to learn every skill there is to learn, which is how to build a factory from scratch, how to buy equipment, okay, how to deal with construction unions, Attimari and Nokupuli, okay. Those are all skills you can't learn in a business school. Yeah. It's not going to happen. You have to learn it on the ground, okay. And that can happen only when you actually set up a business. Nothing you can tell people to watch and learn, okay, but watching and learning is not the same as doing it yourself. And making mistakes, okay, and failing in it. I remember one of my stories after 2 years of work in Bombay Oil Industries was I was given a project to start up a business from scratch. We actually set up a business in making tooth powder. And we thought that was a great business to get into in those days. Okay, there was a lot of market research done and all that, and I was given this whole thing on a platter to say, now you are responsible for setting up this business. So this is the whole study behind it, this is the whole business plan behind it, and now you convert that into a business. And that's your execution capability that we would like to see. Right? So I had to spend 6 to 9 months doing that. I did that and I set up everything from scratch. I dealt with Shiv Sena unions in Tarapur in the border of Gujarat and Maharashtra. Set up a factory. I got one of my cement trucks got stolen. Okay, in those days there was cement shortage. We were buying cement and bringing it, and the cement trucks got stolen. And I remember I went around in circles with the police, and police were hand in glove with all this. So we had to figure all that out. Then I had to figure out how to use power and political power to get hold of the police's boss's boss to make sure that this guy was bloody fixed. Okay, you learn all this only when you actually get on the ground. You don't learn how to get your problem solved by talking to. It doesn't work. You have to do it yourself. You have to dive into it.
And a lot of knocks also on the way.
You get a lot of knocks, and this business failed. I mean, we launched the product. The product was very good, but it gave us a lot of trouble. Colgate killed us. Colgate was the biggest tooth powder manufacturer. It still is. It has 85% market share, and we were fighting Colgate. Okay, which in hindsight was a very silly thing to do. Okay, but we tried it because you are young, you are silly. Okay, you are willing to try anything, and it was fun. Okay, you learned a lot, wasted a lot of money, and came back and said, now what to do? So the next part of the project was, okay, boss, you have shut it down. Now find a way to shut this business down. Get rid of all the labor, sell the factory, and make enough money out of the factory to pay for all the losses. So that had to be done. Okay. So there is learning in every facet of what you do. Okay, and that is what this teaches you. So these knocks also teach you a lot of things.
Yeah, but it's not taught in the Harvard Business School.
Absolutely right.
Okay, changing tracks a little bit, Sanjay. I remember when I joined this industry in '95 from the pesticide background, and Sanjay was a competitor at that time, and I was new to Cochin and came from Mumbai and Chennai, and I recall asking Sanjay, one of the biggest problems I faced is handling unions. So I remember you giving me the advice, look, Kumar, one thing you should do, don't give anything to your boys without they asking for it. Don't be magnanimous. I hope you recall it, Sanjay.
I remember that.
97, 98.
Totally.
And you had Kankor, I think, the vices of the current excise minister as the trade union.
Yes, absolutely. Babu and AP Kurian.
AP
Kurian, yeah.
Marxist guy. Can you throw some light on what are the ways you handle this kind of multiple trade unions?
It was fun. We had a great time. A lot of issues.
Conscious unionism in terms of,
Totally.
Yeah, please.
I think it was good fun. I enjoyed it because the first day that I took charge here in this unit, I was get out for 24 hours. Okay. The best part of it was I slept through it. Okay. And these guys were shocked at that. They said, this is thanks to my Shiv Sena training. Okay. I had learned, and I had learned at least my first few experiences of unionism were with unions that are much tougher than Kerala unions are difficult people to handle, but they are people. Okay. Other unions are not people. Honestly, okay. Trust me, and I say it in these closed doors, but with Shiv Sena in those days, they were nasty people, yeah. Okay. They would kill. There were stories of people being killed also in Kerala. These things don't happen, you know. There are human beings here, okay. And I think that has been a very important lesson for me in many years. You know, working here, you have to understand that they are human beings. Yet at the same time, there is this thought process which is the problem. It's not the people that are a problem. Okay. It's the thought behind it which is the problem, and you got to deal with the thought, not the people, right? And in real terms, you have to manage the people to be able to manage their thoughts. Okay. That's really what is necessary, and that I learned pretty early. So, having slept through that process, they came back and we negotiated and nothing happened. And for 6-8 months, we went into a stalemate. It was almost 8 months, and 8 months later, I was being pressurized then to get married. Okay, and I told my parents and my wife to be that I don't want to get married now until this problem is resolved here. And what am I going to do? Okay, there is a business which is not running. I'm doing nothing the whole day. Okay, I go to the office, I trade in some pepper. Okay, because I can't make pepper into oleoresin, so my plant is shut. Okay, and how can I get married and take responsibility for a wife? Okay, what am I going to do? No, things will change if you get married. You know how mothers are, you know. Okay. So that maybe something happened to me, and I accepted that argument one day after 3-4 months of arguments that were going on in the house. And I said, okay, Baba, set the date. Okay. And the date for marriage was set. Okay. 15 days before that, there was this Epicurean called a meeting. And we started seeing a turnaround in the attitude, say, okay, if we accept your proposal, what will you do in the long run for us? That is how the discussion starts. You know? And I said, what we will do in the long run is something I cannot tell, you cannot tell. Okay, what is long run? Who has seen the long run? After 3 years, if you work hard and I work hard and we can do something out of this business, we might make money out of it. If I make money out of it, okay, I will share something with you. Okay. If I don't make money out of it, I cannot share anything with you. Let's be clear about it. Okay. That was my message, and I said, if you are interested, call me back. Otherwise, let's not waste time. No. 8 months you have stayed outside. 8 months I have twiddled my toes. We'll last for another 8 months also. It will okay. There is nothing I can do. Fortunately, in those days, I could take that attitude because this business was set up for many years, and you won't believe it, but the turnover of that business in those years was 80 lakh rupees a year. Yeah. We were doing virtually nothing. Okay. So it was virtually like a startup. At 80 lakh rupees a year of turnover, and not obviously making no money, when we're losing money, you are happy to shut it down also. It was not a problem. And then I went back to Bombay, and 10 days later I got married. As soon as I came back, when I went for a honeymoon to Rajasthan for 5 days, and then I get a call saying that come back fast because they want a meeting. Okay. So I got called back so I came back to Cochin. And I came here for a meeting and we signed a settlement at my terms. Okay. In those days, we paid a very hefty increase, 78 rupees per head. Okay. And 78 rupees per head to pay 200 and odd people was not small sum, you know, in those days. Yeah, still a lot of money. But 78 rupees is what I had offered, and they wanted some 280 rupees or something like that. So that is what the fight was all about in those days. Right? So what we did in that time was I insisted my wife comes to Cochin because she had not yet moved, and she comes to Cochin. And the day that we signed the settlement, made sure she comes. And for every shift's opening, okay, which is at that 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock or that 4 o'clock in the evening, and then the midnight, okay. Both of us went to the factory, and we welcomed every worker with a box of sweets. Okay, personally. And I said, this is hopefully a beginning of a new life, okay, and if we can work together, we'll find an answer to making this business prosperous, okay. But I need you to work with me, okay, and it's going to be tough work because I'm a tough boss, okay, and you remember that you have a choice to make, just as I don't have a choice to make, okay. For me, my money is in the ground, okay. You have a choice to make. You want to work for me or you don't want to work for me. Okay. You can work for somebody else. You don't necessarily have to work for me. You have an option to go. I don't. Okay. So I don't have the option because my money is here. My money is in the ground. It's a factory is built up. Now I have to sell the factory and go. And I will lose money if I sell the factory. Right? These were the exact words. And I said, and I'm going to be a tough boss. So there is going to be some tough times. If you are willing to work for me, you work for me. Right? That message I maintained every time with them to say, because you know, Kerala labor unions will always come to you and say, you know, where you will come and go. We are the local guys. We are you are the, you know, we are the Thodali, and we'll have to do this and we'll have to do that and all this shit they give you. My answer to them was very simple. I don't buy into your argument. Okay. You have the option of, you first of all have an awesome life in comparison to what I have. Okay. Remember that. You are living at home. I have left home and come here to invest in you guys. Okay. I don't have a problem doing it, but it's my business to do that, right? But my business is also to make money out of it. If I don't make money, there is no purpose in my being here. If you don't understand that, we have a fundamental divide here. Okay. So I got you to, so I think plain speaking is important with workers, with employees.
Great, I think it's a good example of being firm and fair at the same time with a good personal touch.
Correct.
You know, like you and Nandana welcomed the
Absolutely right.
Pack of suits. I think more importantly, I think any one of us are facing a lockout. One advice is to get married.
Especially the young ones.
Okay, Sanjay, I think there was a question from the audience about your new business of OmniActive,
Sure.
and because we are very cooperative competitors before I retired from ABT, because I found Sanjay as one of the people in the industry who are open, you know, not aggressive competition, more of cooperative competition.
Correct.
And you know, among all of the companies who are in the oleoresin business, I think Sanjay is one person. You went to the value-added business,
Sure.
and your family didn't get a buy-in.
Correct.
In terms of providing funds.
Yeah.
What was the compulsion behind that decision? I mean, if you can throw some light in, because value addition in agriculture,
Yeah.
in value-added processing,
Yeah.
is easily said than done. I mean, there are, like rightly, your family was not very much sold out that idea.
No, they were also apprehensive.
So can
you
you
know.
throw some light in terms of what made you do that, which
So-
your competitors didn't do?
So I think it's a very interesting phase at which we make those choices, and there were two, three factors that, if you look at it in a way that made me think of this need to look at a continuous value stream mapping and looking at how do you sail up the value stream. Okay. If you analyze business value creation as a discipline, okay, generally value rises as you get closer to a consumer in a business. Okay. Why does the value rise? Because you get closer to a branded product, okay, and brands have intrinsic value, which create significant value upside in your business. To create a branded business or to create a business that you sell directly to a B2C customer is probably the highest value in a sense. You know. If you look at multiples at which stock market treats you, multiples at which businesses get sold or bought, okay, those multiples grow when you look at going closer to the consumer. So one thing that if you are in the business of creating value, okay, and you are in the business of creating wealth, okay, where will maximum wealth be created in a value stream is what you look at. And your objective is to, how do I sail up that value chain, of that value stream, is what is the thought that drives us, in me, in this whole process. And I look at it saying, can I get closer to a branded product? Okay. How do I get closest to a branded product? And one of the things that I talked about and I started with that at that point of time was to say, how do we create value-added ingredients that can be branded? Okay. And we looked at it from various angles, and we said, we are a small team that sat together and debated this out, and Said in the food and beverage business, this is not going to happen. Because a food company looks at selling the food value or the beverage value or the perception value of a food, right? Which is how it tastes and how it smells and how it looks in their brand. Right? But in some of the other businesses, let's take IT business, okay? Let's take the computer business. You can sell a computer as a computer brand, right, which is Dell or IBM or Lenovo, okay? And you can also sell the chip inside as Intel inside, and both are branded, or ANP or whatever be the chip that you use. Now, so you are segmenting the customer mind into two parts, which is what do I want to buy. Even Apple, the Mac, sells as a Mac with Intel inside. So I said, why does that happen? Okay, and we asked ourselves that question as to why does that happen, and which other businesses would allow us to do something like this. And then we looked at the natural healthcare business, and we said, if you did something in the healthcare space, you could create a Intel inside and sell it, okay? Because what are you really selling is the active ingredient which is working. In a water flavor, you're not selling the active ingredient. It is not adding any value to the customer. It is only a flavor. Okay. But when you sell an active ingredient which works, which makes the difference in a product, okay, you can then say this active ingredient can be branded. This is the thinking that went into looking at such an opportunity exists, then let's do that business, is what we came up with. Okay. Which is why we narrowed our focus down to saying, let's take natural products into healthcare space and create a brand which can be sold as a branded ingredient. Okay. So today, if you look at in OmniActives, what we do is every product we sell is a branded ingredient. We sell to our customers on the agreement that we don't sell to customers who don't put our brand on their packs. We don't sell to them. That's how we operate.
Any questions on this value addition process, what Sanjay explained? Basically what you're saying is have a value stream mapping.
Absolutely right.
And as you get closer to the customer, there is a value enhancement.
So you have to pick and choose what you do. So if I was going to do a food product business, for example, I would not do a branded ingredient, but I would do a finished food product. Because then you are closer to the customer. You're the closest to the customer. But this gave us the ability to do the ingredient business, which is what we knew well, okay? But yet it was branded. So the whole point you're making is what I'm harping on, which is where you can brand a product is what one should do better, okay? And what one should work on in value stream. And that gives you far greater value in a business. Gives you better profits, it also gives you better valuations.
That's a very, just a comment, Sanjay.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliantly articulated. So we tell, especially the students and especially the newcomers who do valuation, so one of the basics is this point about when you move closer towards the customer, or when your product moves closer to the customer, that's where value is captured. So if you have a brand, even if you, let's say you make let's say biscuits, you can make general biscuits and you can sell it to everyone, and they can sell. Till the time you have a brand of biscuits on your own, your valuation doesn't change. But the day you have a brand which is recognized, the valuation
3 times.
Yeah.
Your multiple will go from 7 to maybe 20.
Oh, you see.
Easy.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
Business model is something like, you're not into B2C, but it's something like the story of Intel, what you told.
Yeah.
The branded material will come with a logo.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
The
right.
package.
So the way we would work, the way we work is we are not into B2C, but we don't have our own branded finished product formulation, but every branded finished product formulation has our brand on top of it. Okay.
So the Intel model.
Intel model, exactly. That's how we call it. We call it Intel Inside. Right.
Can you explain the difference in philosophy that you require to defend that kind of a product line?
Yeah.
Because since you're playing an ingredient business where your efficiencies in various other factors matter,
Yeah.
how you make money.
Correct.
But this defending building a product line itself
Yeah.
poses another set of challenges. Can you just
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. It's a very interesting part of the business, because what happens is you have to have both.